welcome back to the channel where we are doing the 8 pen questions revisited, and you're going to ask me all of them, which should be fun.
Yes, I am. We're going to switch things up. We're going to have Alexandra, the Queen of Questions, answer the eight more is it hashtag 8 more pen questions for 2025. So we have 8 questions and a bonus questions if you're ready, Alexandra.
Let's get into it.
All right. Question number one. Do you have different uses for different pens?
Uh, I would say not really. The only pen that I have that really has a very specific use is my Kaweco highlighter pen. Everything else I just sort of use whenever I want. Um, oh, the other one would be I have a Kaweco Sport inked up with sparkly gold ink purely for birthday cards, pretty much.
Okay, nice. So like a shimmer ink, you have a designated shimmer pen.
I have a designated Kaweco Sport that just gets Ferris wheel press plated gold tresses.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it
Nice.
always gets a gold sparkly ink in it, so that I always have a pen in my purse if I have to sign cards.
I like that. That's cool. All right, question number two. How do you choose the inks and pens you will use next?
Sometimes it's based on just what ink I want to use, and sometimes it's based around the pen I want to use. It's very rare that I have an ink and pen combination in mind when it comes to picking what I want to use next. Most of the time, I have one or the other in my head, and then it's what matches this in my collection. I'm very matchy-matchy, other than the fact that gray can go in any pen, and I have a quantity of gray inks. I am a fan of gray. I've done an entire month that every pen in my collection that was inked up was a gray ink. And so I tend to know I want to ink up X pen or I want to have X ink inked up. And then I just sort of go from there and see what maybe hasn't been in the rotation for a while, or maybe I just like want to explore some more. And that's how I pick up my pens.
Or like if a new pen gets favoritism for a while.
Yes, I would say favoritism is a big thing in my collection. I definitely have favorites, and you will probably see those favorites for months and months and months. And then at some point, I'll go, you know what? This has been an inked up video for like 6 months. We're good. I will say my Navler Glacier Horizon, I think, has been in every inked up video since June of 2024, and it still has ink in it. It still has the same color of ink in it that I inked up in that video. I just keep refilling it with the same color because love the pen. There's just something about it that it balances super well, and it's got the perfect gradient ombre to it.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I just adore it. So there are definitely pens that do get a lot of favoritism and
Yeah.
maybe have never been clean since they first arrived in my collection.
Yeah, maybe when they get uninked, they'll get the spa treatment, but until then they're hard at work.
Yep.
Question number three, which pen do you prefer for longer writing sessions?
I would say it depends on what notebook I'm using. If I'm using my MD notebooks, so what's in my travelers, it's anything with a fine or medium nib. Pen-wise, not super picky, but I definitely find that a fine or a medium nib tends to work better on MD paper for me. A broad just puts down too much ink most of the time. If I'm working in my planner, it really doesn't matter. I'll use anything and everything. Clearly, I think I've got 30 something pens inked up currently. I could use a pen pretty much every day this month, and I wouldn't use the same pen twice. So, really, for me, it's all about what paper I'm using at any given time. Um, if I'm writing on a sticky note, it's always a fine, but other than that, it really just comes down to nib size.
Yeah, it's practicality.
It's practicality.
Yeah. Very nice. Question number 4. What is your all-time favorite pen?
So I narrowed this down to four, which still seems like a lot, but I did narrow it down to four. The first, and they're in no order because they're all equally special in my opinion, is a custom pen that Rob from Rob's Penworks created for me. And I love it because I can undo it with one hand.
Oh, nice. It has facets.
It has facets. It's
Yeah.
absolutely custom. It's got a
Mhm.
little octopus. And by chance, made out of the same pigment that was part of one of my very first watercolor collections that I ever helped buy the pigments for, uh, create the color names for, and do the marketing for the watercolor shop that I collaborate with, which is Cosmic Creations. Rob didn't know this when he showed me the rod, and I didn't realize until the pen was on its way to me what the
Oh,
pigment was. And then I had a very good cry because in 2022, I believe is when this collection came out. And at the time, it felt like a really, really big deal. And since then, I've done a whole bunch of other projects with Laura, but this was like my first real project with her was 12 colors that all were this same sort of pigment look, but in a bunch of different colors. Then we have the Esterbrook Golden Gratitude Esty. I was over the moon to win this. I had pediatric cancer at 18, and so getting to win what is really one of the first pediatric cancer fundraiser pens on the market was a really cool experience. I love how sparkly it is. It's diamond cast resin and super great. Then we have my very first Mont Blanc. This was also the first pen YouTube bought me. I had saved up a whole bunch of YouTube AdSense revenue, and it was YouTube's Christmas present to me that I bought just after my 24th birthday. I had known I wanted one for a very long time. I thought my first Mont Blanc was going to be a Bohème. Turns out it was a 146. Uh, I was lucky enough to get it at a really great price from Toronto Pen Shop. Um,
hmm.
and it was super nice to sort of it was proof that I was making money doing something I loved. Um, and at the same time, I got something really cool that I really like. It was from a consignment sale that Nelmar had at the time, and I adore it. I still don't know what nib size it is. I think it's a medium.
Oh,
Much comparing to online photos, I think it's a medium. And then finally, we have the Colotino, which when we're filming this still isn't really on the market yet, but will be in a matter of weeks. This is sort of the first pen that I've been part of the marketing process from very beginning to when it's going to be in stores, when it's going to be at pen shows. And that's been a really fun experience. I have learned a whole lot. I've gotten to do a whole bunch of really cool things. And I like the fact that I get to see something every day that's proof of a project I'm working on. I think when everything you do is online, it's really easy to just sort of get stuck in being online. And I'm in a position now where, yes, everything I do is online, but I'm also working on real projects or real events. And that's really cool.
yeah, something tangible.
Yeah, it's something tangible. It's like, oh, here's here's this pen that is letting me do some really cool things this year.
Hmm. I like that. They all are favorites with you for a very good reason. And I think myself and so many others were so pleased when you did receive the Esterbrook Golden Gratitude. Like it just is the perfect story. And I think it's so lovely to see something that has so much meaning to an individual, and yet you can love it because it's a wonderful writing instrument. It just all ties in so beautifully.
Yeah, so I don't think I've ever received so many texts. And the funny thing was, I was coming home from physiotherapy. My phone was off. We got through the door of the house. I turned my phone back on, and the very first thing on my phone when I opened Instagram was the Estabrook post. And the next thing I saw was the little DM thing in the corner. And I think by that point it was like at 8 or 9, and the Estabrook post had only been up for 10 or 12 minutes. And then I also had a whole bunch of like notifications from being tagged in the Estabrook comment section.
Oh, yeah.
But at the time I didn't know that that's what they were all for. I was just like, what's happened? What if I
Yeah.
and
What's
it
going on?
wasn't until I clicked on the Estabrook post that I discovered what happened.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. Question number 5. If you have to choose one nib size, which would it be?
Probably medium. And that's changed in the past, I would say, year-ish. I do really like broads. I really like double broads. For the amount of notes I'm taking these days, a medium is just far more practical because I'm not always working on fountain pen friendly paper. Theoretically, I should be using a fine or an extra fine if I'm writing on like printer paper, but I find a medium tends to keep up pretty well. And so I find myself reaching for my mediums most of the time if I know I'm not going to be using fountain pen friendly paper.
Very good. Number 6. What is your favorite nib grind?
Kirk Mini Stub.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like those too.
If I could get a mini stub on 90% of my pen collection, I would. Uh, Two, got one on an Esterbrook, and then I've got Matthew Chen's version on a Pelican. They are my favorite grind. I already have an appointment in Chicago, and I'm trying to
Mhm.
decide what nib slash pen am I getting Kirk to do that grind on, because by far it is my most reached for pen grind, and
Mhm.
one of my most reached for pens in general, because I can't write with a stub. They just don't work for how I write. But I find that a mini stub works really well for my writing. It looks really nice. And I just really like it. And I didn't think I was going to. I thought a Techo was going to be the nib for me from Esterbrook in their specialty grinds. And while I do like it, and I like the journaler, and both are on my list for the future, a mini stub's definitely my favorite.
That's nice too if you can get it on a nib that's interchangeable, because then you can use it on a lot more of your pens since you seem to be reaching for it so much.
Yes, and that's the nice thing is so right now I've got it on because I've got an Esterbrook one. It's on a size 6.
Yep.
And so theoretically, if I wanted to, I could pull it from the feed and put it in a bunch of pens. I haven't. So far, it's only been switched into my other SDs. Um, and I've only got two. I've got two Pelican M in the M200 series. And so I
Okay.
could switch that nib into the other pen if I wanted to. So far, I haven't. But I do like, I find I don't get grinds on things I can't switch.
Yeah.
I will get things tuned that I can't switch if I'm really not enjoying the writing experience. I did that with my Leonardo Belladinote. I just needed it tuned a little bit. I've done that with some other stuff, but my only other big custom grind has been on a Kaweco Sport nib that I got turned into a cursive italic smooth double broad nib.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I could put that nib in any of my sport pens. I've got a collection of them, and I wanted the ability to put a fun nib in them if I wanted to. I'm a big proponent of getting custom grinds for the pens you use, not the pens you feel like you should be getting custom grinds for. Um, if it's not a pen you're reaching for, why are you putting money into getting a custom grind for it? Get a custom grind for a pen you genuinely enjoy. Even
Yeah.
if that means you're getting a custom grind for, in my case, a like $28 US pen that I got a $60 nib for. Do I regret?
Yeah.
No, because I have like 8 of them and it can go in any of those 8 pens.
Yeah. So it makes the usability just go way up, which is nice.
Yeah.
Question number 7. If you could use, if you could only use one ink for the rest of your life, what would it be?
So, the two that I had to start with have both been discontinued. Previously, before this summer, it would have been either Ferris Wheel Press Dusk and Bloom or Ferris Wheel Press Madame Mulberry. Both
Mm,
discontinued. I feel like I can't give those as an answer because they're hard to get now. And as much as I love them, and both have been pretty much constants in my collection since I started using fountain pens, people get angry when you just list discontinued inks. So instead, I'm going to list a custom mix, and people are also going to be upset at that. Because I love the fact that depending on the nib I put with this ink, it can be everything from like a dark blue to a purple to having some green chroma shading in it. So it is mostly Sailor Nekoyani with a tiny bit of Sailor Blue Black in it.
very nice.
I love this ink. I've got it in a pen. I've almost run the pen dry that this ink is in less than a month, which is proof that I adore this ink currently. And I think as long as you mix in a sample vial and leave it for a couple days, like I mix between brands and then just leave it on my desk for a couple days. If nothing weird happens in it, goes in a pen. That is how I treat mixing. I think we tend to get really stressed out about it. There are definitely some things I won't mix together. I won't mix a waterproof ink with anything,
Mhm.
but for the most part, I mix, I let it sit in a sample vial for a couple days, and then I ink up.
It's a very personalized favorite ink. So that's
Very
nice.
personalized favorite ink. My issue is that all my other favorites have just been discontinued by Ferris Wheel Press. My,
Yeah,
yeah,
it could be that this question, like if you said like the discontinued one, you'd get a magical ink bottle that would never run out. But
that would happen. Instead, I just have two spare bottles of Madame Mulberry and two 85 ml spare bottles of Dusk and Bloom.
that should last a little while.
I would say my favorite conventionally available color, if you're able to get your hands on it, is Mont Blanc Jane Austen, which is
Mm,
hard to get your hands on, but I love that depending on the paper I write on, it can be everything from a slate blue to a brown to a purple. And if I was only ever going to have one pen inked up with something still technically available on the market, it would be that ink.
yeah, that's really nice. Question number 8. What is an absolute deal breaker for you for a pen and for an ink?
In an ink, anything that doesn't dry.
Mm,
So an incredibly sheening ink where you've got like that reflective layer that just takes forever to dry and smudges. Not into that. Um, I recently wrote about that in a blog post for Goldspot on Diamine Ancient Copper. I need my inks to dry.
yeah.
I'm not into things that smudge hours after you think they're dry. It's not how I operate. Uh,
Mhm.
in a pen, these days I find myself looking more for things that I can swap nibs in.
Mhm.
Um, and it doesn't even have to be like, not everything has to be a Yovo 6, but I've got a couple pens that I can't swap the nibs in, and I'm not super in love with the nibs. And so I'm in this interesting place of like, do I keep a pen I like the body of, but I hate the nib of? Or do I sell the pen and hope that in the future I get a pen I like more?
Yeah.
And I'm sort of like walking this line with pens right now because the pens I find I really like are all things that I can swap. Where when I get tired of something, I can just like put a different nib in it. So I'm much more into these days things that I can play around with the nibs in.
Yeah. That's good reason because it when it comes to curating a collection, those are tough choices to make. With with the nibs because sometimes and sometimes it's vice versa. You love a nib, but you don't super care for the body or you don't find it very comfortable. So yeah, when you're able to swap things around, it really makes things a lot more easy to make decisions on what works for you.
Yeah, like I love my Leonardo Bella de Notte from Goldspot that they released last year's their I think it was their spring special edition with Leonardo. I adore it. It was my first Leonardo. I love the color. I love the sort of iridescence of it. I got it in a fine flex or an elastic fine because I wanted to try it. I knew I liked vintage flex, but I wanted to try something modern that was maybe a little less flexy, but was still supposed to be a mostly pleasant experience. And the truth is, it is. It's quite a nice flex pen for something modern. I enjoy writing with it. The issue is I get bored by
Mm,
day three of having it inked up with a flex nib. And so I'm, as soon as Goldspot has them back in stock, I'm getting a medium or a fine for it because
yeah,
I want to be able to utilize that pen more. And I know in its current shape, I'm not utilizing it as much as I want to. And so those are sort of the ways that I'm buying pens these days. I'm far more likely to buy something where either I already have the spare nibs or the spare nibs are really easy to acquire.
yeah,
Like I don't want to be searching for some random nib somewhere. I want this pen to have a Yovo or a Schmidt or a Bach or even a Kaweco nib where it's super easy to get them.
like that. All right, our bonus question is, what is one pen everyone should have?
I don't have one in my collection, but I think a Kakano because I have been able to penable so many people, um, especially if you're just trying to get into it. A Kakano is great. I would say if you're looking for something a slightly higher level than a Kakano, a Kaweco Sport, purely because the replacement nibs for them are cheap.
Yeah,
If you want to experiment with all the different nibs, do it with a Kaweco Sport, where you can just the nibs and the plastic ones just pull out and you slide them back in. Learn on a Kaweco Sport what nibs you like so that when you're purchasing those higher tier pens, you've got some sort of idea like, do you like stubs? Do you dislike stubs? It is so much easier to buy pens when you've already narrowed down what you like and what you don't like in nibs.